when you are thinking about it, if you could export the scene collection and
Ah, yeah.
throw it in Google Drive, that would be much appreciated.
I will do that. I have to clean it up too, but I will add it to my list.
Hey, that's us.
Okay. All right. Episode 392. Where are my show notes? I guess it's just these two news items.
Yeah, I
outside
was
of
looking. I mean, the second bullet is gonna prompt probably about 15 to 20 minutes of reckless patch predictions. So, that'll be a whole topic in and of
It
itself.
is actually impossible to predict buffs.
we can, we can ask. We can ask, but we can't predict.
I mean, this is not a prediction. This is Santa's list, is what this is.
Sure. Okay. I don't even know what to do for Warrior. Honestly, the proactive stuff I think still feels fine.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell you do in general. Like,
The riffs, I guess we could go with hats, just like reduce them all by 1 mana. But,
was that me?
That was you.
I mean, you said that when they were revealed. You said that.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Fade to Black.
But I've been playing a Fire and Rage Warrior I made, and I don't know, 6-1. I'm in top 1k now. Pretty solid.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good. You've done a lot better with your rank than I have this month.
I am astonished. I have been messing around so much.
Yeah, I haven't really been sticking to a deck either, and I've dropped from where I entered Legend, but I'm still top 500. Like whatever. There's
always
plenty of cool stuff to do.
This always happens to me by accident, and it's just because I am enjoying myself, right?
Yeah.
And also, I know how to murder blood DKs.
If only there was a way for us to share this knowledge.
If only.
I need the Anakin from Star Wars clip. Is it possible to learn this power? Not from a Jedi. Uh, 392? Is that what this episode is?
I'd probably be one of those orange lightsaber people, you know? Oh, this is gonna be a tough one. Okay.
Yeah, we signed the oldest up for driving school, and apparently there's like some parent class that you're supposed to take before they let the kids in. So Maureen signed up for that tonight, and she was like already, like it said like virtual class 2 or whatever was the location, and then she goes to log in and she's like, it's weird, there's no Zoom link. And come to find out that virtual class 2 is in person and in like a town that's like an hour away from us. So she's like, well, I guess I'm not doing that then.
Guess not.
because she figured that out about a half an hour before the class was supposed to start. So she's like, yeah, I wouldn't have signed up for it if I had to drive like an hour away.
I think I have everything here. Thanks, Matt. Twice. Thanks, Matt. Twice.
Apologize for eating dinner.
I mean, please.
I was busy after work.
Okay. Let me make sure.
That's right, Matt at Arms.
Okay.
I love that you had to add that.
What?
Shell.
Yeah, it's for some reason that's blocked. I didn't do that.
I might have done that.
Oh, yeah. I guess. Well,
There was a time during the Blitzchung
I'm sure.
stuff.
I'm sure that there was. Yeah. I mean, that sounds about right.
You know what's funny? People can say things about me, and I just won't know. Because I'm so in my own bubble.
Well,
Like,
is that good? I think that's good.
I
think
guess that's good.
I think it's good.
I mean, like, I don't go to Reddit.
No.
Well, I mean, that's just healthy.
Yeah.
I don't either.
I would like to engage more with the Discord, but there's just so much that it
So
gets overwhelming.
what you need to do, the power. I'm gonna give everybody the power pro tip, the top tip for the Discord. Mute every channel that you're not particularly interested in.
Yeah, I know.
Like if you
I just
if you,
muted everything.
Well, no, I mean you mute a lot of things, but like you don't need like Discord to ping every time somebody adds a list to deck list library. You just don't, right?
Discord pings for that?
I mean, not like, you know what I mean, like the red light to come on.
The
On
red
the
light
Discord.
comes on? It should just be an unread indicator.
That's
and
what I mean.
Yeah. But like
I-
that's just a little white
you don't
line.
need it to go.
No,
You don't need it to get marked unread if somebody just like posts a deck code to
like
the library.
I will actually go insane. So the only things that go red are like things in announcements of various places, and people who at me or DM me.
Well, that's actual like notifications, but I'm saying like the
No,
unread.
this is just the channel name is white.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah. No, I would actually go nuts if I just periodically go to entire folders and say mark as red.
Yeah, you could probably even mute like entire folders in the Discord, to be honest.
I don't feel so good. I need to have a Discord power user like seminar about how to use the inbox functionality to stay wired in. Because you can, like, muting channels is important, but then the inbox functionality just gives you a list of unread messages, and you can skim them and decide if you want to engage or not, or just mark them as read from there. It's very, very useful. I'm not going to try and change you, Edel. You are who you are, and you've been very clear about the adorable bubble you live in.
It's okay at all. I'll still be in the Discord. It'll be fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Forgiven one and engaged chicken or enraged. Yeah, the amount of
I'll ping you
notification
if there's anything you need to talk to.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
And thank you everyone in chat. It's we're obviously going to talk about it at the top of the show, but I really appreciate everyone being so
Oh, top of the
kind
show.
and supportive.
Okay.
Well, it's at this point it's not really a surprise.
Yeah.
Given Number Theory sent me his Google News feed, and I was the top item. It was incredibly strange.
Wait, what? How does that even
There were whole
work?
articles on like Hearthstone top decks and stuff.
The Hearthstone Top Decks article, so that rose to the top
Wow.
of his actual Google News feed. He opened it, and it was a picture of my Twitter banner. And-
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's more than I anticipated, but also
Same.
an indicator of how fucked we are.
I mean, you'll be fine. You'll be fine, but it's very strange. And yes, the show will go through some evolution, but
Yeah.
it'll be
and
fine.
I mean, Adel never swears, so if she's saying we're fucked, we're really fucked, you know.
Oh, I only never swear because we're not allowed to here.
It's your show. You can do what you want.
I mean,
you
but
know I
even
swear
like
on my stream.
but even the parts where where we're not live, you don't swear. So where we're not recording. Which reminds me, I should open our tab.
Yeah, because otherwise I could slip up, and then I have to edit it. So
That's fair.
See, there you go. Self accountability.
There we go.
It's like I stopped driving as quickly, not because I thought it was unsafe, but because getting speeding tickets was annoying. So I just said I'll drive slower because I
Right.
don't want to get more speeding tickets.
Yes.
yeah,
That was the Angry Chicken Tito. That's what that show does.
Yes, the Angry Chicken is famously known for dropping f-bombs like they're hot. Yes.
Whenever Garrett comes back on, I just know that I have to record a content warning, put it at the top of the show. It's a good time.
What are they going to do? Unsubscribe?
We mentioned that, and
I know. Yeah.
yeah,
oh, it was so great.
We can't make that
Also,
joke.
maybe I should say this here instead of like once we're recording. It was hilarious to me how you went for the jobs done into and they were either like too broken or just didn't realize to do the same thing with you.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a little throwback given the content of the episode. It was fun.
I know, but I was like, oh, they left Hat hanging. That's tough.
No. It was good. They were busy crying.
Yeah, I know.
Blood and Frost. I don't know if there's anything that beats Blood and Frost. Because Frost is actually good.
But how do you really feel that?
You can play. No Hands tweeted the lower curve.
Probably aggro mage, right? Frozen touch
The
mage.
Tony Druid?
You could Frozen Touch. The games against Blood DK, even if you win them, they're kind of really, really, really grindy. You could, but I don't love those. But the Vexilus list is probably better.
Oh, I know. Secret mage.
Of course. Dark Judge, if you're Edelweiss, then play Secret Mage. But I don't think you're Edelweiss, because she's right there, and I know that she's not typing because I see her eating. So,
Yes,
like...
If your server is actually Magical Christmas Land, then yes. Do that.
Whatever. Y'all just don't know how to play secrets.
Just don't play Secret Rogue is all I ask you. Just please,
Dear God.
Like, let's just be civil. Don't make that deck a thing, please.
Hopefully I don't have to cast any of it, because I tried playing it and I was like, this is not it.
No. Yeah, look, I don't know if so Lorinda had TJ co-oping with him on stream today, which was about as effective as you would expect that it was.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Are we ready to do a podcast?
Yeah, we should do that. We should do something like that.
It occurs to me that if I get the other events, I will be the other parent caster.
You will.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we're in a way we're all.
Who are the three who has kids?
TJ.
The other one?
TJ.
Oh yeah. Well, but like Lorinda has Soddle and Raven, so you'd be the third.
Sure.
You can tell him I said that.
Have you? I don't know if it's really that way or the other way around. I think Lorinda and Raven may be Soddle's children, especially given the way that Soddle talks to Lorinda in chat. If my child talked to me that way in chat,
we all just like yes, Soddle, you are our leader. Thank you, Soddle. You know, like
that. Like if Soddle is Lorinda's child, it's like one of the children that addresses the parent by their first name instead of by mom or dad. Like
it's like Succession.
That kind of
oh God.
All right.
I'm recording.
Shall we do a podcast? Yes.
We should do that. Yes.
Recording.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 392 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the pet side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, April 20th in the evening. From Gadget in New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Nomergon, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Hello.
And from Northern Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
And from where you are, listener, we have you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to our patrons. We've got a bunch of new patrons this week. TR Highlands, Alan, and Lacey G, thank you for support. And our two new producers, Forgiven One and Enraged Chicken. Thank you so much for being here, and your support really helps. And thank you for everyone that left reviews. Helps other people find the show. And thank you so much to our live listeners for hanging out with us. Should I go first?
I mean,
I think
like,
so.
if we're talking about life and ladder, like, you have clearly had the most life out of the three of us this week, so I think it's only appropriate that you go first.
So, it's very strange being a news item. I refuse to cover myself in the news, so we're going to do this in life and ladder. But, yesterday, the Angry Chicken's final show, which I am very proud of as a final episode. It was very emotional. You all should go check it out. It's a love letter to podcasting. Had some surprises in there, but perhaps the greatest surprise at the end is the one I revealed where I have accepted a job as the Associate Community Manager of Hearthstone. I'm really excited to work on the game and to work with people that you and I both know, listener. The community team, like Deck Tech and Alkali, are both on the team, and you probably know them. Celso's on the team too. He's a good guy. He really helps out with the community stuff. And that's the whole team. So I'll be the fourth member of that squad, at least in the community side. So really excited for that. But that means that content creator hat has to come to an end. I can't exactly come on a show and talk about a game without bias when the company that makes it pays me to work on it. It's not necessarily a policy thing. Like, I actually don't know the policies all yet. I should be careful about this. But it just wouldn't make sense for me to try and be a player representative of the game when I'm also an employee that works on the game. So taking a step back from content creation. So no more podcasting for me. I'll be stepping down from my role as commissioner of THL. I will still be around in places, but I have to imagine that my social relationship with the game has to change because my, employment relationship with the game will change. But yeah, I still expect to be around Discords. I still expect to be tweeting. Doesn't seem like the sort of thing I can really turn off or would want to. And honestly, I feel like those things have helped me be particularly well suited for this role. So I'm gonna miss the content, but you'll still see me around potentially more than you did before. Well, I don't know if that's possible, but at least in a different capacity, you'll still see me around. And, just really honored to get this chance to connect with the game and connect with all of you in a new and exciting, different way, helping to make it as good as it's been for me. But Coin Concede, the podcast, is not going anywhere. I was not one of the founders of this show. The founders of the show were Kenny, Cora, and Kevin. Cora works for Blizzard now. And Kenny moved on a while ago. Kevin moved on a long time ago. A lot of other people that have had roles in the show that have come and gone. We are one of the most resilient podcasts out there where cast changes have not kept the show from chugging along. It will be different, but I have the utmost confidence in Edel and Wicked Good and whoever else comes on if they choose to do that in forging a new path forward.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a discussion. Like, I don't even think either of us entertained the idea that would be the end of the show. I mean, we're still here. We still love doing it. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the same, and obviously, we're gonna miss hanging out with you every week, Hat, and you do a lot of the heavy lifting on this show, and I'm not gonna lie and say it's not mildly terrifying to try to do all of those things between the two of us, at least for right now. And
Let's be real. We are not going to do all of those things. We are going to split up what we can, and certain things will be less, and that's just what it is, right? I think it would be disingenuous to try and just emulate you and do exactly what you do. I'm gonna try and take over as like doing the intro outro stuff, but it'll obviously be very different. I do not talk so fast. And
It's not a requirement. The person before me didn't talk that fast either. Just, so it'll be okay.
There's a reason podcast apps have 1.5 speed. It's fine. It'll be okay.
Wicked will have to carry in the puns department.
Yeah.
So may need to brush up on that a bit because I'm usually like.
Excuse me.
He'll be fine.
You're quite good.
How dare?
He'll be fine. He doesn't have to brush up.
No,
He has
it's
to
gonna be a
unleash.
part of the segment.
Okay.
Unleash.
Oh.
Yeah. It's gonna be different. Like I've been on the show since Ungoro came out, so like it's gonna be different. There's not really a way around that. But listeners, I feel confident that you're still gonna find the best Hearthstone podcast content you can right here on Coin Concede. And also, the biggest competitor just ended yesterday, so things are looking up over here in the Coin Concede.
Where else are you gonna go?
Wow.
No, just kidding.
Listen, I'm allowed to say this because I was on that show. I'm allowed to say it.
Yeah.
But either way, it's going to be different. Things are going to change, but I have a lot of faith in the future of this show, and I better have a lot of faith in the future of content around this game because I'm going to help the people who make it. So, yeah, it's going to be great.
Are you going to be like our liaison now?
I don't know, but
guests?
I'm the North America Associate Community Manager, and you are both North American and part of the community and sometimes need to be managed, so, like, all words apply. I don't know. I don't know the specifics, but I feel like we'll probably talk on occasion.
Well, there is one thing that I know, which is that there's going to be a seat here whenever you want it and whenever you're allowed to take it. So.
But also, like, episode 300 is coming up, so
400.
400.
400. Jesus.
You were off by multiple years.
Look, I don't look at the first number very much.
Yeah, you just look at the nine in the second digit column, and that's all that matters. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but I am honored and grateful to every single person that is listening or has listened, because without you, Hearthstone community, I would not be where I am. I would not have gotten this position. And let me tell you that my 16 years of management experience aside, I'm pretty confident that I got this role because of the community's engagement. The skills that I developed in the day job, great, but the community is why it happened. So thank you all for being there and for lifting me up, and I'm going to try and do the same for you all. And it was also extremely weird to put in my notice yesterday. Extraordinarily weird. After 16 years with the same company, my background check finished in 12 hours because I've had one job and one address for the entire period.
Wow.
Yeah. Really strange. So, also Hearthstone is fun. I am not saying this is a paid employee of Activision Blizzard King Incorporated. I enjoyed the game before I got the job offer. But I'm enjoying the game now. Even though there are some early mild to moderate outliers both in popularity and win rate, and I think those are different, by the way, there are also a lot of weird things percolating that you can try. I've been having fun with Cosmic Keyboard and Burn Mage, because when you go turn 2 keyboard, turn 3 coin volume up, and you get a 4/4 that sprints, that's powerful. I've been enjoying Enrage Warrior, except for some reason the list goes Black Rock and Roll into Trench Stalker now. Okay, let's just take our aggro deck and add Black Rock and Roll into Trench Stalker. That's fine. Though I had a game against an undead priest where I did Black Rock and Roll on 5, Lorthamar on 7, and then they did a Reborn Mind Eater, which, for those that don't know, it's a 2-mana 3/2 that Death Rattle, it copies a card from your opponent's deck. And I died to an 1826 Olgra.
Oof.
That was supposed to be mine, but it wasn't. But, you know, like, this meta is really four-setty in a hidden way that it's not that the cards aren't powerful, it's that the strategies aren't as redundant as they used to be. So when you look at lists like the new Cope of Quel'Thalas Hunter or Trenchstalker Warrior or whatever, a lot of these decks have like a solid 15 to 20 card early game and then 10 really high-end cards because you still don't have great options for redundancy for the early game, mid game, and late game, so you got to hit your mark still. That's really the hallmark of four-set metas, that you want to play the most powerful cards at each point in the curve, but you're not redundant or synergistic enough to justify not having late-game brute force. So Hydrolodon still goes in face Hunter, along with a collateral damage. You can do the Trenchstalker and Rage Warrior or whatever, or Grom, throw in the top end. There are a lot of strategies like that, and I feel it's pretty interesting to see the development. And we know, well, we don't know, but we're pretty sure that there are going to be balance changes the Tuesdays after the Masters Tour. That's their usual timing, and we'll see what comes out of that. The early tease we've gotten is that it's maybe a buff-centric patch.
Yeah, I think the one thing about this meta that kind of jumps out at me when you're saying that is also that, like, because the neutral legendaries aren't quite as powerful, especially with Brand not in the meta, like, the decks feel different. Like, we're not just dying to Denathrius or dying to double Astalor over and over again. Like, Astalor's in a lot of decks, but it's just like, it's fine, right? Like, it's a powerful card, but it's not like the reason that the deck exists.
Well, and it's very different to lose to Astalor dealing 14 damage than Astalor dealing, 56 damage or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that it feels like, well, okay, I died to the Astalor, but I also died to the 26 damage they dealt before then.
Right. Yeah.
Or not 26, 16. I can count. It's fine.
Some number. So yeah, I do think, like, Astalor, I've seen a bunch of Astalors. I have not died to an Astalor. He's a contributor, but it's never been like, I haven't gotten lethaled, I don't think.
Probably Astalor is killing Blood Death Knights more than anything else.
They
I mean,
kind of
14
go
damage
pretty
doesn't
wide,
go
though.
as far as 14 damage doesn't go as far as it used to.
Well, I'm just thinking of, like, Miracle Rogue can get a lot of them, and, like, you'll need them against Blood. But also just, like, yeah, other things, for a 4-set meta, I still think this is faster than many. And I think a lot of times it's just that you don't necessarily go to 10.
Yeah, it's clear that the power level is higher because you just have more options. Core is clearly much, much better, though a lot of the cards I was worried about in Core just are kind of not really problems. I get Dirty Ratted every so often, and, like, okay, I got Dirty Ratted, but it's not like a pervasive part of the meta where my decks don't function. Cult Neophyte, I've seen, after the first 2 days, I have not seen it once.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
Even though
I thought it would be
Rogue
a Miracle
is good.
Rogue.
Yeah, Miracle Rogue is good and doesn't even play it because the secret text of make your opponent's spells cost one more next turn, draw a card, that was the important part. Without field contact, it just kind of doesn't make sense to run something that doesn't get you further into the deck towards your Garrote kill condition or whatever. So, I don't know. It's an interesting format, but we do know things are going to change in the near future, and I'm not going to say that the format is without play experience outliers that we will talk about extensively throughout the duration of this episode. Edel, how has your life in ladder been?
It's been quite good. So, okay. Parts have been quite good. Other parts, not so much. I went to the Ohio State House yesterday. It was like, it's 2.5 hour drive each way. I went to sit in on a committee, and next week, hopefully, I'll be able to testify in opposition. We'll see if they accept the form. I wish they had an online way of doing this, but Ohio has not maintained its stuff post-COVID, unlike some other states. So, gotta drive down there, get a carpool with Kat. So, yeah, that was not fun. But I guess we'll kind of talk about this later. I'm gonna be casting again, so that's exciting.
Yay!
Oh, would it be any tournament we might have heard of at all?
Yeah, I think so. We can talk about it more later. But I'm happy to be casting again, and for that I played some meta decks a bit on stream last night, and got some games in to kind of prep and learn them, and I've been doing better with my decks. It's so weird. I don't understand. Okay, Miracle Rogue performed quite well, which is impressive because I'm bad at that deck. But some of the other ones, yeah, middling. I did okay. Mildruid feels real for a conquest format. I don't necessarily recommend on ladder unless you're facing specific stuff, but there are certain matchups where, like, if you play a solar due process.
Oh, this is not the mill druid I thought we were talking about. Okay.
I mean, it also has shellfish and cover artist and the location.
But you are not talking about the deck that I thought we were talking about. So please go on.
LVGE dumpstered me when I was playing Casey's Relic DH. And it's just like, if that stuff is going early, as Relic Demon Hunter, you do not have the opportunity to get discounted cards because your hand is so full that you can't actually play the draw relic to get discounted cards. Like, even for that deck, it is challenging to empty your hand quickly enough to be able to do that. So it's potentially a counter there, assuming you get the draw stuff going quickly. And then it also, can be quite good against something like Blood. You still are gaining 1 million armor, and other druids, right? The Jailer druids. Blow up your deck. I dare you, right? Like, the fatigue clock is so fast, not just because of Solar Dew, but also because of the shellfish cover artist location and stuff going on. Oh, it also has Posic, so like you can Posic to fill up their hand after they've tried to empty it out, and then when they get all those extra draws, they just burn a whole bunch of stuff. It's wild. Still gonna, get destroyed by aggro in many instances, but against those slower things, it really messes with them.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine if the Tony Druid player knew what you were doing, then they could play around it by trading, blowing up your deck, and then silencing the Tony to give the deck back that turn. But I mean, they would have to know what you're doing, and they would probably be so confused by that point that they wouldn't think to do it anyway.
Well, and also, right, like you both ramp, you are, now both drawing a bunch of cards, and they still have to be able to get the armor fast enough to actually make that play, and hope that you haven't like drawn enough of your shellfish plus maze things. I think it would be really challenging to navigate, and it still has the Mishmash Masher Attorney at Maw clear, right? Just that's just going to be a ramp druid thing going forward.
Yeah, like Druid is still, even if they can figure out some kind of clock there, they're still really, really slow and have to be prepared to get into a really particular Tony game state and be able to pull it all off at a very clear timeline. I'm not sure how frequently they can do that. And also, all you have to do is burn one of the combo pieces, and then they can't do that anymore.
Right.
They can still win the game after that, though.
Sure.
Like, the game is not completely lost after you burn, depending on what piece you burn. But
the clock is so accelerated.
Well, yeah, if you're making them draw 4 cards a turn, that's
Either way, I imagine it's fairly niche, and most of the time on ladder, if you try and do that to a Frost TK or an Outcast Demon Hunter, you will die. You will be dead.
Yeah.
So, just be
Does it
aware
run
of that.
Zoc? Yeah, it still runs Zoc.
Yeah, so I mean, like, Zoc
it has
still,
armor
like,
vendors.
Game down, yeah.
Like, it's got the hero power stuff, it's got armor vendors. it can get a little awkward that the draw a beast thing can draw both Shellfish and Ozumat. So,
Excuse me. Hold on, back up. Ozumat's in the deck? Excuse me?
well, see, because you can use Hedge Maze on Ozumat for a clear. So it's, yeah.
And,
It can
and
be
this is-
it can
this
be
is the deck that
faster
you-
than
And this is the deck you didn't build, is what you're saying.
that is correct. Come on. Talking about this deck, what region do you think made this deck? What
This,
Magical Christmas
Forgive-
Land.
forgive me for mistaking this for something that you would have come up with in a fugue state in the middle of the night. Like,
this look, if their server still existed, this is a Chinese server deck, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I
They're
don't know,
like
the Chinese server decks usually wanted to kill you by like turn 5, didn't they? Or I guess that's Asian
Sometimes.
pack,
Gay
not-
one
There's
every
also
so-
wacky stuff.
Yeah, it's Gayuan6 GEYUAN6 on Twitter always posts these lists from China region players. Now they're on different servers, but that this is where the first Garrote Rogue list came from. There are a lot of weird combos that haven't popped up on the Americas side or the Europe side yet that make their way over from the CN server, and now like they're playing on different servers, but still the same kind of ingenuity of communal development. That it's just really interesting to see some of this stuff come together. So I have my doubts that this deck is applicable in a wider meta, but in Conquest I can see a particular target being possible, even though also sounds weird as hell. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
you know.
I wasn't sure about it, and I was like, well, this is weird stuff, I'll practice this on my own time. And then I got absolutely obliterated by LVGE while testing, the meta things like Relic DH, and it was like, okay, maybe I have to try this because I might actually have to sound intelligent this weekend if someone brings it.
Well, I'm glad you found your fun with Mill Druid. Steve, what
It
have you
went-
been playing?
Like, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, so up until today, when the Vicious Syndicate report came out and told everyone to play Tony Druid, which is not good for the things I want to do. I've been kind of flailing. I tried a bunch of stuff. I was in Lorinda's stream yesterday, and he ended up queuing into a Control Priest, which is always pure entertainment for me, because Lorinda hates Control Priest like I hate Thief Rogue. So it's always a good watch when that happens. But this was a player named Mortal Dance on EU who had made a different Control Priest with Heartthrob, which is the 3 mana 2/5 that whenever you overheal it, you get a minion equal to however much you overhealed it. And the overheal package in general is not it, but that card did a ton of work. And so he ended up coming into Lorinda's stream after that. And I asked him for the code. I was playing that all day yesterday. And I went like 9-5 with it. The games take forever because it's Priest and I was facing mostly Blood DKs. And the Blood DKs, at least as of yesterday, had somehow gotten even greedier than they already were. Like I stole multiple Denathriuses from different players. And one of them played a Lorthamar Theron. And let me tell you, if you enjoy Dirty Rat, a 4/12 Dirty Rat is a hell of a lot more fun than a 2/6 Dirty Rat. It's double the fun. But I was, I was just going through and I feel like I was actually doing a public service because I was occupying the Blood DK so other people wouldn't have to queue into them. So I think I really would like it for you to all thank me for that public service that I was doing. Aside from the people who weren't Blood DKs who I was queuing into and making miserable. I did queue into one mirror, and that mirror is actually miserable because even by Priest mirror standards, it's miserable.
You don't say.
Oh no, this is on another level though, because like if you remember the Baron's Priest mirrors when we were like
I try
playing,
not to.
yeah. So like when those would go all the way to fatigue, right? And then we were playing the pirate that would draw a card from your opponent just to set them one further into fatigue and stuff like that.
South Sea Scoundrel.
So this is that, except nobody ever actually gets to fatigue because you just keep shuffling stuff back into your deck. Because there's like drowns from Svalna, people run Ajara to get the shuffle 5 spells into your deck, and then play Power Chord Synchronize on it to get another copy, and then shuffle 5 more spells in. So nobody ever hits fatigue. And I won the one mirror that I played that I ended up thankfully getting them to concede after I played the 3rd copy of Ashara, and Ashara had actually not started in my deck. So, that was a thing that I really hope nobody brings this deck to Worlds or to the Masters Tour this weekend, because I would not enjoy casting those mirrors. But
Pray for me, chat.
well, I mean, you can feel better because now Vicious going to get told everyone to play Tony Druid, and Tony Druid just like it's actually unwinnable unless you find exactly Dirty Rat and hit the right thing. So I just figured if I can't beat him, I join him. No Hands had posted today a modified version of Tony Druid that doesn't run the Moshers, and he's running instead of the Eternium on Mosher, he's running 2 copies of Chitinous Plating, a Street Sweeper, which is the 4-mana 2/2 that does 2 damage to all the minions on the board, and he's running ETC. And ETC is actually hilarious because
it cut Mishmash Masha, right?
Yeah,
you have to cut Masha to make Broom.
See, this is the kind of content we're gonna miss.
I wouldn't say you're missing it, Steve.
Are we though?
So the ETC, we all ask what's in ETC. No one asks how is ETC. ETC is great, but so it has Fizzle, which makes sense. It runs Crazed Alchemist.
Yes.
And Deathwing. So the Crazed Alchemist brought me back to my Void Ripper Priest days because I bonked somebody for 18 with the Zoc Taunt today, and then the Deathwing came in handy against a Blood Death Knight when I gotten the combo off on them and they just asphyxiated my jailer and started beating me up. So I just played the Deathwing. The Deathwing, I had no cards left in my hand anyway. The Deathwing killed off my Tony, which swapped the decks back because you blow up their deck when it's a control deck that can kill your Tony. So if you just normally against most decks, what you want to do with Tony Druid is you want to jailer first and then Tony, because they can't get rid of the Tony because the jailer's on the board, and then they just go into fatigue. But against like Priest or Blood Death Knight that can run like Whirlpool or Soul Stealer, then they just do that and then they just laugh at you. So what you do is you trade first and then you jailer, you blow up their deck. And so the Deathwing swapped back and then left 12/12 on board. And then that was able to just beat them up over the next couple turns because they already used the Asphyxiate to clear my board. So I'll probably end up playing that some more, at least until people stop playing Druid and start playing Blood Death Knight again, so I can start beating up on the Blood Death Knights a different way. But I'm finding I'm not my rank's not where I would like it to be because I spent a lot of time experimenting and losing a lot, but I'm finding ways to have fun.
We're going to talk about this in explanations, but I have a very different approach to beating Blood DKs.
I'm sure you do.
Well, before we go to news real quick, I just want to take a second. I understand that there are some concerns around Blood DK being the most popular deck in the format and Death Knight's presence, but if you listen to the Life and Ladder section we just had and the variety of gameplay experiences going on right now, I'm pretty happy with the launch of Festival of Legends. They're going to change it in 5 days, assuming that is the timing of the patch, which I am assuming. I don't know. Don't have any inside information. My onboarding paperwork hasn't come back yet, so I don't have access to anything. But just what we've talked through so far, it feels pretty refreshing and pretty different, even though there's still opportunity for more nudges. We'll see what happens. In fact, we have a little bit of a hint that we'll talk about in the news section. If I can find the button. There it is.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So first, we got a server-side patch. Now, it didn't change much on the constructed side. In BG's, there's another like 20 armor adjustments or whatever. They've been changing armor a lot in general. That seems to be just the trend. But there are some bug fixes, in particular one that is very important that we probably knew was coming, and if we didn't, we should have. Multi-strike and going down swinging. So there was a thing that was going on where the combination of multi-strike and going down swinging would end up with you being able to attack the enemy hero in the face 3 times. That is not how that was supposed to work. People were confused because it was fun and good, so they're like, maybe this is intended, actually, because it was fun and good and they wanted to keep doing it. But I had a test for explaining how this rules interaction could be intended. I said, explain how this could be on purpose. And no one really had a good answer. And then Team 5 changed it. So, it has been fixed. You will no longer be able to play Gonk DH, as people have been calling it. There are a couple other bugs that got fixed involving the fans and transformed minions. There's an achievement change. Cover artist on Funkfin apparently didn't work right before. Didn't come up much for me. But it was a thing. So now if you cover artist your Funkfin, you will find that it functions as you would guess.
Functions?
Function? Yeah, I like that. Anyways, so relatively low impact, except it is important to note the Demon Hunter stuff was like actually really good in the data. So probably for the best that they changed it, but also it just wasn't how the card is supposed to work. So, RIP Gonk DH. We also have a vague tweet from Aleko, the balanced lead on Hearthstone. It says, patch preview, and then there's a really buff guy, because they're going to do buffs. You get it? You got it?
The best response to this I saw was, so this means you're bringing Guess the Weight back into core for Druid, right?
I get it. So, with nerfs, it's relatively easy to guess, and I still anticipate nerfs. I still do. Even though blah 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 DK, like at high MMR, not actually even above 50%, it doesn't matter. It's too popular. They need to make it less popular. I'm assuming that Vampiric Blood gets a mana, something like that. I don't know, but that would be my assumption, because you need people to play fewer Vampiric Bloods. 4 mana takes out of the School Teacher pool, but it might be too much, just because the deck doesn't have that much wiggle room for functionality, and clearly people still want to do it. But throw a mana on triple rune cards, like Vamp Blood, Frostrim's Fury. Unholy is really powerful, too. You could hit Grave Strength and push that in extra mana, too, if you wanted to. It's an option that I could see for changes, but otherwise I don't see a lot of decks in the format that need to be made substantially worse. I see a lot of decks and new strategies that need help. So, scrolling through the Festival of Legends file of cards in this set that didn't land, of class sets that didn't land, what is our wish list? Because this is not informed, but what is our wish list?
I think you can guess my number 1.
Is it
Light
Warrior?
Show?
No,
Light
Light Show. Yeah. Okay,
Wicked's
Light
got
Show.
it.
I imagine
And
they'll do
it's-
something.
It's one that you have to approach very carefully, and I can acknowledge that, because it's the kind of card that could get very oppressive if it's too good. Like, looking at the numbers tweaks you could do, because I've thought about this a bunch. I think, naturally, raising the damage on the beams is too much. You put that to 3, and it's so much more damage over time that that's probably too insane.
Probably started at 2 beams though. That might not be. That might not be too.
Well, it
bad.
does start at 2 beams.
Oh, then maybe start or yeah, I guess 3
Right.
beams. Would be way
That
too
was
much,
what I felt was the sort of smallest bump that could still be very helpful, is increase the number of beams that it starts with from 2 to 3, because then it like is reasonable to try and clear with earlier on, so you have a little bit more defensively and you just get it rolling a little bit faster. If you decrease the mana to 2, that might be okay, or it might break it in half, because then you can play 2 of them with Vexilus. which is still later on, but like it also means that with the apprentice, they all cost 1, right, as arcane things. So it just enters kind of weird territory that's maybe a little sketchy in terms of how easy it becomes to play, right? So yeah, I feel like the safest thing would be to just increase the base number of beams from 2 to 3.
See, my fear with Light Show is not the card itself; it's Solid Alibi. Because, like, I think this is a monkey's paw situation with Light Show Mage. Because if you make Light Show Mage better, there are going to be a lot of games with 4+ solid alibis, and that is going to be so much worse in terms of Reddit salt than anything that Blood DK is generating.
People are already going to do that if they want to do it, though. They're going to be doing things where they die afterwards,
Right?
most of the time. But
yeah. But I'm just remembering Gunther Mage when people were discovering ice blocks, and this is not that much different, and this is actually kind of designed to copy those. And I'm not sure how they handle that, and maybe it just kind of evens out if everything ends up balanced. But I'm a little worried if that gets too good, then yeah, it's gonna be a little bit too much. I mean, I think that the obvious thing that you want to touch is the rifts, right? Because I mean, the rifts have been not it from the beginning. So, I don't know if you either bump what the rifts do up, or you bump the mana cost down, but you got to do something with the rifts to make them worth playing, especially because, I mean, it feels like launch relics and launch warlock curses, where they were not sure, so they shipped them too high, and then they eventually balanced them to be a little bit better, and then they got there eventually. But I think the rifts are an obvious thing that they need to touch.
So just scrolling through the file here, I'm going to say let's skip Death Knight and Demon Hunter. I think they're doing fine. We don't need to buff anything going on there. Even if some of the specific cards here haven't seen a ton of play, I don't care. So we're just going to keep going. And Druid seems solid enough. The hero power stuff, along with the token stuff, is kind of seeing play. I don't know if we need to buff any of that. For Hunter, Big Beast is kind of not a thing. And all of the Big Beast cards in this set are kind of not a thing. There's Stranglethorn Heart, which is frankly terrible. Harmonica Soloist, which discovers a secret for some reason. Is that the only secret synergy? It's a 3-mana 4/2 if you have no other minions. Discover and cast a secret. Why?
That's one of those to me where it's just like, we're throwing this in here so that when we have secret stuff for Hunter down the line, it has one more piece. But it's just going in this set for now to fill space.
They're not going to buff it, because what's the point? Banjosaur is sad, which I guess is the point. But and then Big Dreams. All these cards kind of don't do much, so that would be the opportunity to buff Hunter. For Mage, most of the set, frankly. The Rewind stuff is powerful. Cosmic Keyboard's a good card. Please do not buff Volume Up. Please do not buff that card. That card is loco bananas, but everything else is kind of bad. Lead Dancer can go to 5 in Paladin.
So I want to push back on the Mage thing a little bit. Okay. Volume Up, I think, is the best one. Cosmic Keyboard does not need help.
That card's great. Fantastic.
That card's fantastic.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think some of the other stuff, I mean, we mentioned Light Show, but some of the other stuff I think just doesn't have a home, right? There's Rewind is nuts. It just doesn't have the right place. But I think it's actually a really well done enabler for all these things where you want just more of the stuff. It works both for the skeletons and for Light Show, both situations where you just want more of the thing. And of course, Solid Alibi, which might be a problem, but
I think Light Show's the only card you really need to touch there. I think the rest of the stuff, if Light Show was better, then the rest of the stuff would probably see play. Because you'd have more of a reason to do it. But I mean, unless we're looking for a reason to make Mana Storm relevant, maybe that's something that but I don't think anything here is really going to do that.
I don't think there's a reason to make Mana Storm relevant because I expect there will be big spells to make him relevant later.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
he just seems like he's ahead of his time, right?
Yeah.
So
Like the only thing to do right now is Pyroblast.
yeah. Yeah, it feels like getting Swift Scale Trickster before we got Jackpot, right? Like
Right.
that's kind of how we feel about Maelstrom right now.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying, frankly.
So, and talking about Paladin, lead dancer, that card sucks. Like,
Do we need to help Big Paladin? I feel like Big Paladin, I've seen it enough, right? I feel like Big Paladin you do not need to make the cards better to get people to play Big Paladin.
is
People
it
are going
popular
to play
now?
I am at ranks where it is. We'll put it that way. I've been trying to get myself out of the ranks where people think that it's an appropriate thing to play. But I'm seeing enough of it that this is the kind of deck that people will play when they no longer care about their rank. And I don't think you really need to help it. I think that it's the kind of deck that people will play no matter what, and I don't think you need to touch the cards for it, to be honest with you. And the rest of Paladin super does not need help, right?
Sure.
Like Paladin is fine when you're talking about like pure Paladin. Like the rest of the set, like Disco Mall, Boogie Down, Funkfin, Jitterbug, like that all is completely okay, and we don't need to touch any of that.
The main thing that I think about, I played some Frontlines Paladin, some big Frontlines Paladin, because you beat up Blood DKs, because you get your Rivendare down, and it dies, and then you Frontlines, and then they die. So, if they nerf Blood DK, I wonder if Big Paladin will lose in both its already terrible win rate and play rate. They did just make a bunch of new cards, including multiple legendaries around this idea. I don't know if they can just let it sit. Because if they take away the main food, it's just not going to have anything to eat. So I
think
could see a mana
they
here
could-
somewhere.
Yeah, I think they could turn Lead Dancer into 5 mana, right? I don't think that would be too egregious. If we think of the comparable deck in Warlock, Amorphous Slime comes down on 5 mana, and it also does not do the thing right away. You know, the slime has to die, Lead Dancer has to die. You have to be a little more particular with the minions in your deck for Paladin than with Warlock. Just because 3 attack is a very different requirement than just undead. I think
Yeah.
it could get better as well as they make more like large, big effect minions that maybe have 3 attack, kind of keeping this in mind down the line. But I think there's enough there that if they put Lead Dancer down to 5 mana, like that would be reasonable.
I don't think it needs more targets. It needs more non-minion cards that don't suck. Because you need to play non-minion cards that don't suck, and there are not that many things you can put in your deck that are cheap minions with huge power or spells to play before turn 6 or whatever. And turn 6 Lead Dancer Pass is just so not a thing. Like, just so not it. As far as Priest, the Overheal stuff and Fight Over Me, you could make any of that better. Fan Club could have an extra durability, maybe. You don't need to buff Power Word Sync, but Fight Over Me really didn't land the way I thought it was going to, because it was really good for me during theory crafting, but then on ladder just hasn't really worked at all. So that would be the slower card I think you could buff, but Overheal in general, outside of an Ike deck, which is fun, but it's an Ike deck, it hasn't really made an impact.
Yeah. I mean, these cards are fine. The problem is just that the meta's too all over the place, really. I mean, Harmonic Pop is amazing.
It's a good card.
Love Everlasting is really good. Like Fight Over Me, I think that it's always gonna be a meta dependent card, right? It's gonna need to have the right shapes in order to do anything. And you still have Svalna to get it, right? I think and Fan Club can maybe restore 4. Like the thing with Priest right now is just that the healing isn't there, right? Like the class lost a lot of healing. It lost Desperate Prayer. It lost Gift of the Naru. It lost Hero Zarella. It lost Light Shower Elemental, which is like low key the biggest loss here. I mean, that healed 8, and that was a big source of healing, especially with Hero Zarella. Like, I think I mean, you can't make it 5 because of Hadanis, but I think
Also
you can,
Heartthrob.
yeah, also Heartthrob, but I think you
Yeah.
can make it 4, right? Like, I think you can make Fan Club heal 4. That would by itself make the whole overheal package a little bit better, and it would give Control Priest like at least a little bit more sustain when it starts getting bursted. Because like the way you can beat Priest now, which is very different the way it was in the past, is you just keep doing consistent damage to it and it can't get back, right? Like once you start hitting it enough, like it just can't recover quickly enough.
I have beaten Control Priest with Enrage Warrior.
Yeah.
And that in Barons was the most like 90-10 matchup ever. And it's noticeable, both the like lack of healing, the like kind of running out of stuff because it's a 40 card deck to deal with like blood, etc. So I just have games where I just keep pressuring. I get some stuff outside the range of pop so that I still have a couple minions left. And then I pick up a charge minion and that's it.
I will note
So-
that, like, playing the Overheal Priest, the Overheal Minion Priest, Fan Club did feel like one of the better cards. Maybe you give Idol's Adoration the extra durability. Because that card at 0-2 is kind of not
yeah.
great. But at 0-3, I
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
could make a pretty decent argument for it. That's where there's room for that card to be better without it being broken.
Although it is spooky since it is used in Shadow as well.
Is it?
It is, but, like, again, it's not exciting in that deck. I played it in Shadow.
I guess.
Idol's
Okay.
Adoration has been a card that I will begrudgingly include, never a card that I'm interested to include.
Okay.
So, it's, like, in Shadow it's okay, but 3 durability would make it feel a lot more worth it. Yeah. So, as far as Rogue goes, I understand saying Rogue buffs is a scary thing, but the only cards in the Rogue set that have landed are the weapon buffers. Only Mic Drop and Harmonic, and Mic Drop is even falling out some lists. The combo stuff just has made 0 impact.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if they want to buff Rogue, given that Miracle Rogue at high ranks is really, really good, but also I don't think any of these cards are running a risk of ever making it into Miracle Rogue. You could probably leave Beatboxer alone, but Disc Jockey, the 4-1, that combo makes a combo card. Card's awful. It's not very good. And you kind of need that for Rhyme Spinner to work. I don't know what the solution is there. Make it a 4-2, I guess? Like, is it something? It needs, like,
Or maybe this
it
gets
needs
something in
to-
the mini set and we don't need to buff it, right? Like I feel like okay, I'm just gonna say it and then you can tell me to shut up. Rogue's been so good for so long. Like, and he's always on a knife's edge, that maybe this time we just let it be, give it some stuff in the mini set and then see what happens, and just like let the other classes have a chance. Because like it's so easy to just like it's like throwing a weapon tutor into wild. It's like you buff one innocuous card, all of a sudden the whole class goes bananas, and not in a hunter way.
But Rogue
Yeah.
is already really, really strong at High Legend. It's not that we won't see the class unless they nerf Miracle Rogue. And if they do, we'll need something else. Pirate Rogue with the, like, Weapon Rogue, really. Like, it has pirates in it, but it's a Swordfish deck. That deck's okay, and that's fine. But the entire set didn't land, and so it wouldn't be a lack of Rogue, it would be a lack of new Rogue. And the new Rogue is a lot less offensive than the old one. I want to give people a chance to play with the new cards that are worse than the old ones with your Rhyme Spinner deck. So I don't know if it needs buff right now either. I understand the concern here. Don't touch Breakdance, don't touch Bounce Around, but Rhyme Spinner, Disc Jockey, Mixtape, are these cards going to hurt anyone? Record Scratcher has been complete garbage. I haven't seen a Blingtron. I think I saw Blingtron once.
Yeah, I would really love Blingtron to be decent at least. And 5 just feels like a lot for what you're getting. Rhyme Spinner, similarly, every time I play it, I think of the warrior version that just gets buffed for each minion type you've played, and that card is way better. The one in warrior. Rhyme Spinner, one of the biggest issues is that you have to combo it itself. Like, it's not just a minion that you can play with Rush. You have to combo it for it to get its effect. And you'd think that would be fine, but since you're using all your activators to combo the combo cards to buff this, it actually becomes this awkward thing where you're like, oh, well, I actually need something to combo my payoff card as well. And so it was weird where I'd be like, okay, well, this would be decent size, but I can't just play it for the Rush right now because it won't be it won't be big enough. Like, it won't get the stats.
Well, we'll see what happens with Rogue. I don't expect buffs here, but I think that there could be an opportunity. As opposed to Shaman, though, let's ask the other question. What wouldn't you buff? Because the entire new set is fun and didn't land. The whole thing.
Eyesore was the best
Yeah.
card that
The
Shaman
core set
got.
landed.
Yeah.
The core set did. So the entire Overload package has got to be where we start. Like, I don't know if Inza needs to be better, and making that card cheaper just invites the wrong kind of success. But every other card in this set, like Jive Insect, I don't know if that's supposed to cost 4, but I know that at 5 Overload 2 it's mid, maybe Overload 1. I don't know what to do with Saxophone Soloists. Altered Chord feels pretty good when I play with it, honestly. The Weapon Jazz Bass, I want it to be good, but it isn't. Flow Rider, I know is good, but it's just not worth running. I don't know, like, the cards are fine, but the deck just doesn't get anywhere. So I'm not sure how you make it better, but all of these cards have options.
Yeah. I mean, there's no, like, what's your end game with the Overload stuff, right? I think that's kind of the question. Like, there's no real, like, there's a lot of stuff you do, but then, like, how are you winning the game? Like, you're doing a lot of stuff, but you don't have, like, an end goal with what you have there. I mean, is it Jive Insect? Is that what you're going to? I don't think it is, right? So, and me again, maybe we're at Death Rattle Demon Hunter, in Barons, right? Where there were a lot of pieces and then it just didn't come together until we got, like, the 3/2 that did a damage to the board with Rush. And I think it might have gotten something else. We might just, like, be missing one piece to tie this together. I don't know what buffs are going to do, because, like, these cards don't lead you anywhere. Like, the Totem Shaman is the deck that we're playing, but Totem Shaman doesn't really want any of this.
So, looking at this, I feel like we were kind of in a place where the Overload stuff is building to something, but because it's 4 set, it's just, it doesn't matter if these are fine. There's not density. Pack the House. If you can land Inza into Pack the House, like, that's good. But I feel like one of the best ways to kind of do something here is actually you do Prescience for big minions, and you've got the Coral Naga
Coral Keeper?
Coral Keeper and Wrathspine Enchanter, but the tribes you have for Frost and Fire are not enough. Like, we need a fire board clear for that to be something, because doing a bunch of Command of Neptulons is good, but you need a little more value out of it. And the only Frost spells right now are Chill Vibes and Cold Storage. The only fire are Jive Insect, and then the
Scalding
2 damage
Geyser.
spell. Yeah, Scalding Geyser and Blazing
Transmutation.
Laser
Yeah,
Transmutation,
Which is not a thing.
Right.
Not
So,
anymore.
I mean, it now is just a thing to silence enemy minions, right? So there's just not density for the Overload deck. I don't necessarily know that it needs to be touched, but looking at these cards, I'm sort of like, okay, well, maybe there was an intent for some kind of menagerie thing to tide people over, but I don't know that they'll actually do anything for Shaman because Totem is good. Like, and so maybe it's just, well, you play Totem until there are more cards to support this stuff.
Yeah, and Totem is really good. Totem is a strong deck.
Yeah.
It does not get the respect it deserves. Okay, as far as Warlock goes, the fatigue cards are the coolest. I don't even know if you need to buff them, but those are the ones that people want to play with. I don't know what you do with Rin to have her still be Rin. Because, like, the way for that card to be better is for it to be a new card. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think Rin is the kind of card that you don't need to convince. You don't need to make it better. Again,
right.
Another one that you don't need to make it better for people who want to play it. People who want to watch the world burn don't need encouragement. Right. I can tell you that from years of experience. So I think that's fine. I think Opera Soloist is one that I would look at. Like, maybe we make that like a 4-mana 3/5, right? Just give Warlock some sort of like a board clear that it can use. I mean, without having to rely on Hellfire. Like, yeah, go ahead.
It would be better if it weren't a demon too.
It kind of would, wouldn't it? Because then you pull it out of Voidcaller.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, it is worth noting, what's the best soloist? The answer is they're all horrendous because having minions in Hearthstone is good. They're all horrendous.
I think it's the dragon one.
The warrior one, because it's a 5-mana 5/5 taunt with a dragon tag.
It's a 7/7 taunt rush, right?
Well, when it's
activate it.
Yeah, when it's active.
Yeah.
But even when it's not, it's still not bad, right?
It's not great, but it is a functional Hearthstone card as opposed to a 5-mana 4/3, a 3-mana 4/2, a 4-mana 2/4, a 1-mana 1/2, a 5-mana 4/6, or a 3-mana 4/2 again. It's a 5-mana 5/5 taunt with a tribal tag. It is potentially non-embarrassing if you have to play it when you do this crazy thing called having a minion. So, otherwise, the rest of these are, DCU has it right in chat, these are Caravan level. They are, like, not even close to being a consideration.
Wow. Those are strong words, but he's right, unfortunately. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if you do a blanket buff on these because I still think the condition is so harsh that they probably won't ever see play, so why bother? I'd rather go somewhere useful.
Yeah.
I don't know what the useful cards here are, but the fatigue ones are the ones that I want to be good the most. And Felstring Harp. But again, doesn't feel like Felstring Harp needs a buff. It just needs more support. Oh, Symphony of Sins. Let it discover from more options, at least 4, but I'd allow up to all of them.
Yeah. I think if you can select exactly what you want on the first one, it immediately becomes like a really good card. I think the best one for Warlock in the set, and that's great because it's also the coolest one for Warlock in the set.
Yes.
Yeah. Or maybe if you discovered 1 out of 3, and then you discover another one to put in your hand and shuffle the other 5.
You could do something like that. I want 6-mana do nothing to not happen. That's the reason why this card kind of like isn't where I want it to be, because I can pay 6 mana for it and be really excited about it, then not get anything relevant and immediately die. And it just makes the card a lot less interesting. Well, no, it's still interesting. That's the problem. I keep wanting to play it, and then I keep getting the negative reinforcement of I did the thing I wanted to do, and then I immediately got punished for it. You could do 4 choices very easily. That code is in the game. We've seen that before with Kalamos, like with other choices. 4 pop-ups is not hard to do. If you want to do all 7, the functionality that I think you would have to do is discover 4, but the 4th option is turn the page, and then the remaining 4 are the next discover.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that sounds technically involved, not something they can just throw together.
Or you can even do the Volpera Scoundrel thing, right? Like, take one of these 3, or take one of the random ones of the other 4 that you didn't choose.
Sure.
A little spooky, but yeah.
I could see it. It's, I just want it to not punish me when I play the cool card. And right now, that's what I feel. That's where I feel there's the biggest opportunity, the biggest gap between what I want to do and what I get to do. And then Warrior, again, you can buff a lot of the cards here. the Rifts. Like, just don't buff Roaring Applause or Black Rock and Roll because those cards are good. The other cards, you have room. You have
Power
some room
Slider
to
you
buff.
could probably leave
Yeah,
alone too.
Power Slider, I also think is quite strong.
It's all right.
Like,
Drum Kit, I think it needs to start at least at 2.
or I mean, this is probably too much, but if it gained 1 for each armor that you earned,
Well, I
Right.
mean, then it just becomes a ridiculous clear incredibly quickly,
yeah,
right? Because you.
Warrior needs a ridiculous clear.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, it's still, honestly, maybe that would be fine just in the sense that you still don't get it right away,
Yeah,
right?
you have to work for it. You have to put cards in your deck, and like, how is Warrior clearing the board right now? Brawl? I mean, Bladestorm's not it.
like you
Concede?
can't top deck Drum Kit
Well,
and
yes.
clear the board unless you also
Good.
have the fire spell.
Yeah, but
Like,
that's good,
it's-
right? Like, it
No, I don't
requires
think that's
setup.
good. If your best clear is one that you can't top deck and play, that's awful. Like
Yeah.
it makes Brawl still the best clear.
I do
I mean,
think that
but
there's some room
but
for.
You're making my point, though, right?
I think there's some room for Drum Kit to improve. Like, that card's not bad once you get it going, but it is conditional and takes time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we just don't have enough ways to gain armor 1 at a time.
Right.
With the cards that we have right now. It's just like you can gain chunks of armor. Like, we have heavy plate, we have shield block, obviously the hero power, but like, you don't have an armor smith or anything like that that's gonna like build up your armor incrementally.
They
And-
tactically removed Armor Smith.
Yeah, I mean it's good, but I mean, I think it's okay. Like, Warrior needs something to hang its hat on, right?
Some things. It's
Some things, but like, let's
multiple.
start somewhere, right? Like, if we're going to have Control Warrior be a thing, it needs to be able to clear the board without it feeling like a resource that you're using forever, right? Like, the reason that Blood DK and to a lesser extent Control Priest are able to function in this meta is because they can remove repeatedly, right? Like, you have to deal with Soul Stealer and Corpse Explosion and Blood Boil and Asphyxiate and Obliterate and whatever, and like, you don't feel like you have to make a choice because your removal isn't unlimited, but it feels like you can line up answers. You cannot line up answers in Warrior because your answer is the same for every question, which is concede. The question is, why are you still playing? Is the question with Warrior.
For Control.
I'm really curious where they end up as far as Warrior, because I don't see an easy solution here, and they also have to undo a lot of negative player sentiment around the class of, well, this class is a joke now. So I don't know if they can possibly overcorrect. I don't know if there's a way to do that with Warrior's cards.
Well, they could unnerf from the depths, right? That would be a way to overcorrect.
It
I
doesn't.
don't think they'll
synergize
do
with
that.
Black Rock and Roll.
Yeah, it would be worse than it was before because a lot of the synergy pieces are missing, but also I still don't think that's a good idea, and I doubt that they think it's a good idea, but that might be the way to do it. I don't know. I'm really curious what the deck or archetype they have in mind that they want to push.
And again, maybe it's the mini set, right? Like, maybe there's like the missing link in the mini set. We're at that point of the meta now where we start, wondering what the mini set has in store. But maybe it's there. But I don't know how 3 cards is gonna change the situation significantly.
Well, we should find out after the Masters Tour. Hey, does anyone here know anything about the Masters Tour? Let's find out in the tournament section.
It's the grand tournament!
Hey, we actually have information about the Masters Tour, which was not the case several days ago, up to the point where some of the competitors were actually wondering when there was going to be an announcement so that people could watch them play. But we do know that, we knew the dates, we know the start time, which is noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. It is still best of conquest. It's still best of 4 conquest. $50,000 prize pool. That was a change that they made initially to give the competitors something to play for in addition to just the seed at Worlds. We know who the casters are. Our casters will be Raven, Soddle, TJ, Lorinda, and our own Edelweiss will be casting.
Did it!
Yay!
So that alone is a reason for you to watch, and also please watch so they continue to do Hearthstone esports. Like, in
Please
general. Like,
keep me
please.
employed.
We will be able to watch, I believe on both. No, not I believe. We'll be able to watch both on Twitch and YouTube, and they've also opened up applications for co-streaming. Though I don't know if that was for this weekend or if that's just like opening that up for future co-streams. That's something that they've done for Battlegrounds Lobby Legends for a while, is allow community members to co-stream the tournament, which basically means that you have it up and you're watching it with your community, and you can either, do your own commentary on top of it, or you can there was a suggestion that some people could try to get practice casting with that. I think that Clark Hellscream has been talking about doing something like that. There are a few things you can do with that. It depending on who you're watching with. I know Pocky's co-streams before he was casting Lobby Legends was very well received in terms of getting a lot of high level information about what was going on. So we may hear that at some point. If not, then just watch but you should probably just watch the official stream at least when Edel is casting. Go watch whoever when it's Soddle and Raven, I guess. No, they're good too, but watch when Edel's casting. The other thing that we're finding out is that not all of the group matches, it seems, are going to be streamed. They're going to be playing, it sounds like, in parallel, at least through the first couple of matches, and that's presumably to get the length of the tournament down to 2 days. The previous Masters tours, they would do groups the first 2 days. They grew to Group A and B on one day, Group C and D the second, and then top 8 on the third day. So they're compressing the first 2 group days into one. Some of the players are understandably upset about that because this is their only opportunity to get stream time, and if they go out early, then they're going to be missing out on a lot of that. That's neither here nor there. I believe we get deck lists tomorrow, which is Friday, right, Edel? Because I think
Correct.
Yeah. So we should know what those are. There is a link. Hearthstone Esports actually tweeted out the link to the Battlefy, which is something they haven't done in the past. I've usually had to go ask Donkey for it. So that will be available. So you'll be able to see decks there. And watch the Masters Tour. And then we'll have a lot to talk about next week.
Yeah, this will be somewhat challenging to enable, but my hope is that upon looking at the deck list, we already know the groups. There might be some possibility of us casters figuring out who is likely to finish earlier. So maybe we start with them and can still catch a couple games of the matchups that are likely to go longer. No guarantee that will function. It's very hard to predict how long certain matchups will last, and there's no guarantee that, aggro is going to face aggro, control is going to face control, that kind of thing. But that would sort of be ideal for us if we can at least try and get everyone to have some of their games cast. But, who knows?
It could also be band dependent if you have 3 aggro decks and Blood DK.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, good luck with logistics. I'm going to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is the Masters Tour. It is also worth noting the communication around this event was pretty spotty. But the Hearthstone Esports official account has said there was a lot of change to prep for this first event. We're really going to do a better job next time. And to be fair, whoever's in charge of the program now is a brand new person taking over for ABAR in a dramatically reduced budget situation. I believe that they might not have been immediately able to come in and just do everything.
Yeah, and,
but-
and I mean it's the problem is that like everybody is hanging their hat on this, right? Like it is fairly, at least it feels fairly crucial for the continued survival of Hearthstone esports for like these events to do well now that they're on Twitch, and the fact that the promotion has been less than I think folks would want is adding to some of that frustration and frankly desperation around it.
Yeah, I will say that, like, yeah, they are aware of things that could have been done better going up to this, and the person taking over. There is no doubt that they are passionate and they want to do the best that they can do with what they've been given. Having met them, I can say that.
I believe that. So we'll see. We'll be able to talk about the deck list, the event, and all that next week. We'll have a very full show next week. Though also now that I think about it, I should probably remind people we don't know the date of that next week's show because I'll be flying back from vacation next Thursday, so it won't be on Thursday, but it'll be over the weekend at some point. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Taking the
but-
remaining of your time off.
So I scheduled this vacation in November, and I applied recently.
Okay.
It just happens to be a complete coincidence. And by the way, so I found out that the morning, like I told my team, the day of the last day before my vacation, completely coincidental, also happened to be the last day of the Angry Chicken. And then my start date there is Monday, May 8th, which happens to be my birthday. So, cosmic alignment?
Wow.
I don't know. It's either way. Lots going on. But if you want to know about a different situation that has a lot going on, we can talk about Blood DK's matchup spread. And Edelweiss has some tips. Well, we all do. But Edelweiss has been working on it. She's very proud. About how do you beat Blood Death Knight. Let's go find out.
So, like many of you on ladder, I'm sure we've all been facing tons of blood decay. Whether or not it's fallen off at the higher levels in terms of win percentage, it's still very, very popular. And I think for many folks, especially those who enjoy aggro, it can feel demoralizing to face just in terms of the slow death that they kind of set upon you. Just removing your stuff and healing out of range, and you're waiting for the Mograine ticks. But I'm here to tell you that I have a really good win rate against blood, and I think that is because you need to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of this particular version and way that people are playing the deck. In a sense, because it is so popular, people are partially teching for the mirrors. And that has created a bit of an arms race of greed in some cases, where you see such cards as like, the Discover a Legendary minion.
Paparazzi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, oh gosh, I saw someone running Sunwell. So
Yeah.
I take a different approach, but we'll get to that later in terms of how I build blood to beat other blood decks. Essentially, I take a page out of Hat's book and I say, just hit them. And you say, well, but it's a blood decay. They just play vampiric blood and they heal out of range. You may notice, listener, that if you look at the 40-card blood decay list on HS Replay, there's a lot of Discover cards, especially if, this one doesn't have the paparazzi that we're looking at on the broadcast, but they very commonly have Ghostwriter, School Teacher, Nerubian Vizier, Chillfallen Baron draws cards with Hematurge, right? There's all these value cards because they're a 40-card deck. And so while they do still run double Corpse Explosion, double Blood Boil, double Soul Stealer, I think what you have to do is say, they are 40 cards, you play around one copy. That is what you do because the consistency is lowered. So if you can play around one copy of each of these things for the most part, generally that is going to be your preparedness. And sometimes you'll get blown out by the second copy, but other times they just won't have it. And in particular, I've had many games. And recall, I'm playing Warrior. I tweeted out earlier in this week a page of 9 Warrior deck lists, many of which were like Menagerie or Enrage. And sometimes, you lose because you run out of stuff. But I think in a lot of cases, people's frustration is actually that their deck is incapable of keeping the pressure on strongly enough, rather than that like it's just super unfavored and they can't win. Many, many times I'm playing this matchup and I just keep on the pressure, keep having just enough threats. I think if you want to take something like a Totem Shaman, you can definitely have boards that they feel like they must deal with. And if you have one of those boards and they're playing a school teacher or they're playing a script ghostwriter, that's because they don't have the answer, and so they're discovering. So that means you need to ramp it up even more. Even if they discover the answer in that case, it means that they maybe don't have the next one. And there's a window between turn 5 and turn 8 where they've used whichever clear that they had, Blood Boil or Corpse Explosion, and Soul Stealer is not yet online that they could have in hand, where you can really apply that pressure and make sure that you have efficient ways of dealing with something like a Screaming Banshee, something like a Gnome Muncher. It's important to have tools that are able to deal damage without gaining them a bunch of life, whether it's just by having a big enough minion that you don't have to do too many hits, or having a Divine Shield so they don't gain the life, having a damage-based spell removal to finish them off so they don't gain the life.
Sylvanas is really good in that spot.
So, yeah, if you're playing Unholy, Sylvanas is great to steal a Gnome Muncher or a Banshee. But also, you can't be afraid of their healing. Like, they can play Vampiric Blood whenever. They're going to play it when they have the corpses. You want them to just play it and not Banshee play it. That is where things are going downhill.
The times when I concede against Blood DK, and this is going to be an individual emotional experience, because if you were the person listening to this and listening to us talk about Blood DK makes your blood boil, then listener, make the executive decision to concede when you feel like conceding. If you want to win more, we can give you that advice, but it does involve staying in these games. And some of it is recognizing when you don't need to do that anymore. And that often comes from decks with non-sustainable from-hand damage. You might think from-hand damage is how you get there, like if you just dodge Blood Boil and then hit them. But they just undo that pretty quickly. So, like, Face Hunter and Outcast Demon Hunter are less favored against Blood DK, even though the Outcast matchup, I think, has some room for play, because it's a bunch of small minions and then limited from-hand damage. Right. Whereas, if you're playing something more like Pure Paladin or Frozen Touch Mage, it's going to be a grindy game, but you have either beef or sustain in terms of damage. Those games, you can leave them early if you want to. Staying will get you more percentage points at the cost of time efficiency. And if you're listening to this because you want to beat them, and that is the main thing you're focused on, you should stay in those games. If it makes you have less fun with Hearthstone, then you make the call as to how much time you want to invest in that. But winning more games, well, you can't win the games you leave. So we're going to give advice assuming that you're going to stay in until, and the reason I say this now, I was playing a game with, I think it was a hybrid Beast Hunter against a good Blood Death Knight player, pretty high up in the ranks. And in turn 9, they did Banshee, Vamp Blood. I left. I was good. Because they played 23 power with the stuff. Wasn't going to beat it. Gained 20 life, 23 power, pretty good turn 9. I'm out. See you later. Didn't feel a need to play that one out.
Yeah. And in general, like, the way you beat a control deck is by not letting them do what they want to do.
Absolutely.
And what they want to do is sit around and draw cards and gain life. And if you don't try to put pressure on the board because you figure they're just going to remove it anyway, or it lines up really well into something like a blood boil, right? If you don't even like put something on the board and make them use it, then what they're going to do is they are going to instead play a Chill Fallen Baron or play a school teacher or play a Vampiric Blood and find those answers that you were playing around, and they may not have had them when you played it, but they may very well have them after you let them draw. So
Right.
your job as any deck playing against a control deck, specifically like Blood Decay, is to force them to play your game and not allow them to play their game, because as soon as they start playing their game, then they will start amassing resources, and when they amass resources, it's a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where I'm not gonna play into this blood boil, so instead you're letting them draw to find the blood boil that they may not have had already.
And I think this is a good time to talk about Blood Boil specifically. And I think there are two situations with Blood Boil. Obviously, there's the worst case one that, you know, happens to Outcast Demon Hunter, where you've got a bunch of small stuff, they kill it all and gain a bunch of life. Nothing you can do about it. Another scenario is they do it with the expectation that it will clear some things now and other things the following turn. And they set up, you know, trades with little minions to lighten stuff up. If you are playing a class that is able to buff, it may be more worthwhile to buff your stuff so that it'll get another hit because the power is already so high. You know, you can do this as Paladin. You can do this as, I mean, I've been doing it as like Enraged Warrior, but any of these classes that are able to buff a bunch of health, even if it's like you're playing an aggressive DK and you discover an anti-magic shell or something, sometimes that's just enough to make things able to survive one more tick. And if you do that on enough different minions, sometimes they're forced to use another clear, so they don't get that life. And that is like, it might still feel bad to you because they still cleared, but you have to understand the win of like, well, they didn't gain that life and they had to use the extra tool. And I've had plenty of times where they're just like still not able to deal with the big minion. And it's like, well, they're gaining 2 life and it's going to die eventually, but also I hit them for another, 6 or 8 or whatever.
Sometimes I always feel the best when they blood boil like 3 minions and then they have to trade into one of them next turn. Just it mitigates the value of the blood boil over time so much that it ends up being like a 5-mana death strike. It just hits 3 things for 2 instead of 1 thing for 6. That situation is manageable. But the way I think of it, I play around blood boil the same way I play around Arcanist Unleash. That if I'm going really, really wide into removal that I know specifically punishes that, I have to have a really good reason. And other times, I have to make peace with the fact the game's going to be a little longer and I got to pace myself. I want to make it so they have to play the removal, but not when it's best for them. So, Arcanist Unleashed is the same thing, where if it's turn 6 against Demon Hunter, you're going into the 6-mana turn, you know if you have a wide board, it's bad for you, not for them. So you trade off those Fierce Outriders or whatever. Yeah. Right? You just trade off a couple of them. You can do this with Blood, but Blood Boil is just, it's 2 damage, and then your stuff still lives. If you're hitting for 4, 5, 6 or more, and if you can make it so they have to trade into the thing that they debuffed anyway, it's not a bad spot to be. Still a really strong card. But I actually think that Corpse Explosion does more work for that deck a lot of the time, because it just kills everything through shields. It's really powerful.
Although, make sure you're keeping track of their corpses. Every once in a while, they play the early Vampiric Bloods, or maybe discover the hand buff thing. I don't know. Yeah. They do stuff, or right, that spends corpses. Like that. Right. And sometimes they don't actually have that many locked in there. And so you can take a look and say, all right, well, max Corpse Explosion's only 4 right now. So, if I can just get my minions above that, we can pretty much avoid that clear and force them to do something else first. And please don't trade with their utility minions. I'm begging you. Like,
that Hematurge ain't gonna hurt you. Just leave it up. It's fine.
If you are in a situation where like you actually need the value trades. There are situations where it makes sense. I think there are times where you've got the blood boil and you're like, well, I'm not going to get enough damage out of this minion to make up for the fact that it's healing them and going to die. So like then you want to trade away the debuffed minions. But most of the time, like you want to force them to make the trades, unless you are specifically protecting a bigger minion. Say in the instance of the upcoming clear, you don't want them to be able to trade and clear one of your minions that will otherwise survive. Apart from that scenario, like you don't trade. You only trade to protect a priority source of damage.
So that's all if you're playing a deck that wants to kill your opponent quickly. But what if you're not interested in doing that right away? What if you're playing the Mirror or you're playing Control Priest? It actually doesn't change too much. It does change a little bit, but you're still playing for tempo to some extent. Like you're still putting stuff on the board and making them use their resources, because at a certain point they will run out, and whoever has more of them is going to have more options to be able to press damage in the mid game. The one thing that you do need to pay attention to when you're playing as a control deck against Blood DK is you do need to keep track of how fast they're drawing. It doesn't mean that you never draw, but you do want to make sure that you're just not getting significantly deeper into your deck than they are. You don't want to be like 4 or 5 cards ahead of them. In case the game does come to fatigue. Like you do need to find things, so it's okay to draw, but just make sure that when you're drawing, you're thinking about it and you're not just drawing because it's something to do. Because normally that's the right thing to do, is if you're not being challenged and you can draw, you should draw. Against another control deck, it's not always correct if you end up getting into that spot. And generally, like whatever you can do to get more things that deny them resources is going to be what you're going to be looking for. Dirty Rats, Theatar, getting patchworks, getting copies of patchworks, stealing their patchworks, stealing copies, making copies of the stolen patchworks. Those things are going to help because they're both denying resources and they're also pushing your opponent deeper into fatigue, and patchwork specifically, which is, again, these aren't often going to go to fatigue, but they can. And you have to, once it starts getting to that point, you need to be thinking about that. And if you're not playing around that from the beginning, then you can find yourself in an oh crap moment later on when you realize that, you have been hitting each other with wet noodles the whole game. And you're going to go to fatigue and you're 4 cards deeper into your deck than they are. Though one thing that you can do in that spot is you can use Finley to shuffle your hand back into your deck if you need to. And also, if you have anything that you care about playing as a battle cry, if you have it in your hand, play it. You want to play it before turn 7 so it doesn't get patchworked out of your hand. Anything like a Mograine, a Sister Svalna, something that, anything like a Stone Right if you're playing Totem Shaman, right? You want to make sure that anything with like a battle cry that is game affecting, that you need to go off, you need to prioritize playing it before Patchwork can come down. And that may mean taking some damage even. In the case of Svalna, I often will force Svalna down even if I'm facing down a big board, because I know I'm probably not going to die anyway. That turn, I can heal it back up. But if my Svalna goes away, then I'm going to have a much harder time winning the game. But ultimately, like, anything you can do to build a big board and make them, again, react to you rather than playing their game is always going to be good. That's why the Heartthrob has been so good in the Control Priest, because I just play that. All of a sudden, I've got like 3 actual minions on the board, one of which is going to keep making more minions if they don't deal with it. And then they have to spend a turn death striking it or asphyxiating or obliterating it or whatever, instead of being able to actually like do something. And then I've still got minions on the board that get to hit them that they have to then spend another turn dealing with. And then those are clears that they don't have for later when some of the bigger threats come along. So even just like getting some of that stuff down, whittling away their life total a little bit, it may feel futile because you know that they're going to heal, but it does make a difference, and sometimes that pressure can cause them to make plays that are suboptimal, and those you're always playing the long game anyway. You're trying to get them to use the resources now so they don't have them later.
Spoken from the perspective of a person that wants to conserve those resources.
Yeah.
It's like, you know how to control.
You still win with card advantage, even in a control mirror, right? Like, card advantage is still important if you're. It doesn't just have to be like wrecking an aggro with a harmonic pop or something. Like, sometimes card advantage is making them use a board clear on a single minion in an attrition style matchup.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the different games I've had against Blood DK. Like, I posted a couple replays where I posted one where it was 17 turns as a Frost DK against a Blood DK, and it got there. And it was just because, I discovered a Death Whisper, and then Frostrum Furied them 4 times, and they Theotar'd away the 5th one and gave me a Soul Stealer, and that was enough, like, to make room for my Marrow Manip. Not something I'd recommend, but, it's the kind of way that games can go against them. It's not impossible to get under them. You can do that with Outcast DH, but it doesn't happen very much. It's not impossible to outlast them, but it doesn't happen all that much. But those possibilities exist. And also, you can just go taller or go longer or have the value. But whenever decks like this are really popular, I feel like we get a disproportionate amount of representation in both the Discord and everywhere, just communally, about people like, how do I never have this happen to me? Or just even if they win, the games take a while. And I recognize the experience feelings around that. I don't know. It just... I feel like people are so used to the idea of a low life total at any point in the game means the game is close to over.
Yeah,
if you separate yourself from that idea and make peace with the fact you're going to be in a game for a little bit, no matter how it goes, I feel like it gets a little bit less painful. Not a lot. I'm not going to say I love it. I don't. I don't love it. But it's got to be... we have to find some way as a group of players to get past the idea that control will be good sometimes.
Yeah. And the other thing, I'm just going to tell you this for your own mental health, basically. Like, don't stay in the game because you think you're wasting the control player's time, because I assure you they do not care.
They enjoy it. They want you to stay.
I have an emote in my chat, which is me doing the condescending Wonka pose, which is called "Are we done here?" Because that happens where I end up in games a lot where I'm just taking my turns, and my turns take 15 seconds, and my opponent takes 45 to 60 seconds to figure out if they're going to do something when the game has been over for several turns. And as long as it's not a Thief Rogue, I really don't care. And the only reason I care about Thief Rogue is because they generally find some way to screw me out of the game anyway. At least in the last meta, less so now. Though the Secret Rogue, we're not going to talk about that. But like, if somebody who's signing up to play a control deck, they know what they're there for, and they expect to be in the games for a while. And you are not affecting them at all, because they expected to be spending this time with you, and you're just getting yourself saltier and wasting your own time rather than just like getting out and then going on to the next game and getting that win back.
Yeah. And going back to the low life does not necessarily mean end of the game is close. I do think I have had moments where my opponent was low and I was like, oh, this is my window. And then I did something slightly inefficiently. Yeah. And then they actually had the opportunity to play some Vampiric Bloods because they were just able to stabilize from a No Muncher or something. And I go back and I think to myself, oh, shoot, if I had gone like with this kind of clearing plus getting my rag down instead of doing this other play that I did, and then later I actually didn't have time to play the rag because I was on the back foot once the No Muncher came down. Like, things can snowball out of your control very quickly if you make a wrong move at times. And so you do need to be cognizant of like, okay, this is my window to do this thing. And granted, I'm playing a lot of decks with rag and Alex on the top end, because I'm about that sustained damage. I'm going to use that to segue into, well, how do I beat Blood DKs when I'm playing Blood DK? And it is not this race to the bottom greed that they've been doing, because that makes you crap against like the other aggressive stuff. What I do instead is I take out Corpse Explosion and put that in ETC, because that's your like clear both boards a whole bunch. And I go down to 30 cards. And my top end is Alex, Rag, the Soul Stealers, Mograine, Patchwork, No Munchers, Banshee, right? So it's all this proactive stuff.
This is
you know,
2014 Control Warrior.
Yeah, and you know, it's a lot of the same things as the other ones. Just, you know, there's no Ghost Riders. There's certainly no Paparazzi or I don't even have Body Bagger. I just have Tour Guide, and it is all about just like, yeah, your early game's a little slow. That's where you're doing things like Arcanite Ripper. I don't try and fully juice an Arcanite Ripper. I often do it for like, you know, a 3/3 or a 4/4 because I'm just trying to get stuff out there and, you know, pressure. So it's much more about like removing their stuff so I can hit them in the face. You know, Obliterate's great for that. Obviously, you can still discover stuff to that end. You know, if you can get a reduced Vamp Blood or something to play on the same turn as Banshee, like you go for that kind of stuff. But I'm not trying to outlast because I cannot outlast. I am 30 cards. So I'm trying to kill them. I'm trying to rely on the fact that being 30 cards, I should be more consistent. And so I'm much more likely to hit that on-curve Mograine. And I'm much more able to take advantage of that on-curve Mograine because I have more damage to follow it up. And Mograine is actually better the more aggressive you are. Because, like, you know, the damage is synergistic. And so consistent 8 damage to the face.
You're gonna put that code in the show notes, right? You're gonna do that right now.
Yeah, I can do that. I need to double check because I think I might have changed what's in ETC a little bit. I have Fizzle in there, and I think that's supposed to be instead of Rivendare, not in addition to. But I forget what is there instead of.
But I think that point you make about Arcanite Ripper is actually really important. Like, you don't like the thing with the what I don't even know what it's called that comes out of Arcanite Ripper is that it's
the soul, I guess.
The soul or whatever. It's gonna die, right? Like it is going to die when it comes out. The only thing, so whether you make it a 4/4 or an 8/8, it's probably going to die either way. You only need to make it big enough to force them to care about it so that they're gonna remove it, right? Because either way, if it's 4/4 8/8, it dies to the Asphyxiate or the Obliterate just the same. But forcing them to use it means that then they're not dealing with the rest of your board that you probably developed alongside of it, and then you can continue to pressure. So it's tempting to kind of go for the long ball against a deck like this, but it's generally you just need to know what they want to do and then make them do it when they don't want to.
And for mental state, you've got to recognize when they were just lucky and they had it, right? Sometimes I'm 30 card, they're 40 card, but they had the on-curve Mograine and I didn't. And I was on the back foot and I lost. Sometimes you're playing the deck and they had the Blood Boil into Corpse Explosion into Soul Stealer and it was just too much. That'll happen. But these are just all things to take advantage of the chinks in the armor, recognize the weaknesses, try and exploit them.
Yeah. I mean, it's all percentages, right? Like it's not like nothing is like if you could win against it 100% of the time, you would do that. That's never going to happen. So it's just a matter of like, how do you set yourself up to be able to take advantage of whatever luck you stumble into, right? Like that's really a lot of, I mean, that's what the whole game is setting yourself to take advantage of luck. But, you know, and sometimes the luck is you discover the thing that puts you over the top. Sometimes the luck is that their draw is trash and they don't have the answer. Because, like, keep in mind, this is a 40-card deck. They are not always going to have every answer to every board that you have. And sometimes the right play is to just close your eyes, put a towel over your head, pretend it's not there, and just go in. And if they don't, then press the button in the lower right.
Sometimes I look at a hand and I'm just like, well, I definitely lose if I play around stuff here because I don't have any follow-up. And so at that point, it's just well, YOLO, and if they have it, we hit the button, and if not, they die.
Yeah. We see the trends at higher ranks where blood is already falling off. They tend to hit pretty specific marks over the course of the game, in certain breakpoints of their mana and their spells. And there has to be something that we can do if the best players in the game are finding edges here, whereas in some of the times when we play, it feels like there's less of an edge. So the question is, how do I find that? How do I manage that? And also, how do I emotionally manage the length of a game and the amount of healing that they have, which is a big, big part of it. So hopefully we don't have to deal with this for more than another week, because keeping the Discord on task has been a little challenging, because people really don't like losing to a lot of life gain removal over time. But this deck is not overpowered. It is perhaps an unpleasant play experience to face as frequently as we're seeing it. Though that also does mean that there's clearly some part of the strategy that speaks to a lot of players when it's so popular and when it's like decent, solid. And at some points in the ladder, it is one of the better decks. Still decent. But if I look at Legend, it is, since the balance patch, it is number 8. If I look at Diamond through Legend, it is 50.25% win rate. It is not a top 10 deck. So there are other options out there. The format is not being constrained by this as much as the other Death Knights, to be frank. Because both Frost and Unholy are way, way better decks and winning more at all levels of ladder. And if they do pull back Death Knight, I hope they hit those decks too, because Unholy and Frost are being held back by Blood Death Knight. So if you nerf Blood and not these other two, you're not going to see less DK. You're just going to have your minions frozen or get bloodlusted. You don't want that.
Yeah, but if you are trying to do a legend push in this meta, right? Like, you're going to have to be able to play against this deck. Like, it's dropping a little bit in despite the fact that it's dropping in win rate, it's not dropping in popularity. I'm looking at the popularity tab right now. Last one day at Diamond 1, it's 28.3% of all decks that it just replaced tracking.
Yeah.
Right? That's down a little bit. It's only down from like...
It reminds me so much of Stormwind Quest Mage, where, like, it was barely okay, but also super popular and everyone loved the fantasy, and then other people were so tired of losing to fireballs. And in this case, it's just blood boils instead of fireballs. Like, it's the same idea. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want to climb in this meta right now, then you're going to need to be able to play against this deck. Or, if you really don't like it, then, if you don't like the meta, wait 5 minutes. Right? Like, wait for balance patches on Tuesday and see if that improves things. But I would have trouble imagining a set of balance changes that would remove this deck entirely. I think it's still going to be the kind of thing that people, even in the last meta, people enjoyed playing this deck, even when it was objectively terrible. And it was like a joke that we had, like, if your deck can't beat Blood Death Knight, you probably should be playing a different deck in the last meta. So people enjoy playing this deck. So it's going to keep being played, and it's worth understanding how to play against it so that you can take advantage of it, because people are doing that.
Yep. Well, Edelweiss's list is in the show notes. Check it out. I'm sure she'll post it in Discord too, which I will remind her to do after the show, because all of our live listeners want to see that, and the show notes aren't published yet. But yeah, we didn't give explanations on what to play right now because there are so many things to play. But in terms of what we're hearing about, it's how do I not lose to Blood DK, not how do I play it. So here we are. But I think that's probably going to do it for this week. But we do have like a lot of folks we want to thank. A lot. So I have to update this slide because we keep getting producers. Okay.
This is a good problem to have.
They're seeing you off, Hat. I'm sure it'll get smaller.
I can tell. So stop it. Stop it right now. So we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, coincanseed.com. You can find our contact info, show notes, Patreon information. You can monetarily support us over at patreon.com/coincanseed. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats on our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. Get some CC swag over at shop.coinconcede.com. I can proudly report that a lot of our producers and early customers have received their merch, and it's pretty cool. If I do say so myself, I'm not biased, but check it out over at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our very long list of producers. Number Theory, Doshike, Crush Cat, B-Squatch, David P, Fade to Black, Wild Lou, Jeremy T, Bottle Caps, Grumpy Monk, Krebmart, The Bird Club, Kirk Reagan, Forgiven One, and Enraged Chicken. For Coin Concedes, Kemfala, thank you for the raid. Fade to Black, Mad at Arms twice, and Tito Santana, thank you so much for the subs. And Coin Concedes, Edel, you have some written down already.
I do. For once, I remembered. It's first one to Tack. They had their Jobs Done episode, including our very own Ridiculous Hat, where he announced his getting the job at Blizzard. So congrats to everyone over there. You know, everyone's moving on to other successful ventures, be it Child, Grinding Gear, or working at Blizzard. All lots of cool stuff. But then, you know, specifically, I want to concede to you, Hat, just for everything you've done for this show over the years as well. And I know you're still going to be involved in all kinds of ways, but, you know, it's still going to be very different. And I'm going to miss talking to you every week. So you still have a couple episodes left with us, but
I do.
And I'm going to echo all of those things because Edel said it much more succinctly than I could have.
And then specifically to Garrett, who edited together, and I was late on my submission, but a bunch of video submissions us other creators made to kind of send off the Angry Chicken. Garrett took it upon himself to edit all that together into a very beautifully made video. And Ali Straza sent me the happier stuff and lower tier. Ali Straza and No Hands Gamer both gave me huge raids last night when I was accidentally counter-programming the final episode of TAC, which was completely not on purpose, and I wouldn't have streamed if I remembered, but, you know, I went back and watched the VOD later. It was fine. Anyway, once I already was streaming and I was going to maybe stop, I was like, well, I just got an Ali raid, so we're going to keep going. And then, well, I just got a No Hands raid, so we're going to keep going. It wasn't even that long a stream even then, only like, you know, a little over 3 hours. And then I sent the love over to Blizzlet, and they were very happy. But yeah, Coin Concede to them for sharing the love.
It was an evening illustrating Hearthstone community in many, many ways. And I am so lucky for this to be the community that I get to represent. But I think really a lot of this just... I wouldn't be here if the community wasn't that great. And the community, like... It's been the reason I've stayed with this game for so long. And it's been what's lifted me up. So I'm not surprised that the reaction to everything yesterday, which was everything. And Steve, I'm sorry, you asked for no more major Hearthstone news for the next week, and I let you down. But just
I will consult with a new priest and with a young priest and an old priest as promised.
So that's one game. Young at the beginning, and then he keeps like your prisoner.
I'll just message TikTok or something, and we'll be covered. But yeah. But,
so. Yeah. It's been a lot. My Coin Concede, anyone that hears me right now, who you are, person hearing this right now, I Coin Concede to you. I don't know. There is no way I can do anything less than thank everyone for everything. Because of you all, I get to change careers, have Christmas off, which is not a given, no longer touch trash with my hands, and live the dream of working for the game that I've been playing nonstop for almost a decade. Because of you, I get to do this. So Coin Concede to you, listener. to obviously my co-hosts are amazing. I don't have to tell you that. I'm going to say it anyways. My co-hosts are amazing. I'm so stoked also to go work with Alkali and Deck Tech and Celso. Like, the interview was so fun because it's just talking to my friends for an hour. I'm like, I can
What are they
do
going to
this.
ask you that they don't, that, like, I mean, other than like, are you willing to relocate? That's like the only job related question I could think they
No,
would ask.
the
you that
HR
they didn't already
screener
know the
asked
answer to.
that. The screener asked that a week before. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but Nick was like, I don't have any questions, dude. It's the other two had plenty of questions. There was plenty to talk about, but Nick is like, you have any questions for us? I had a couple. But it feels like I feel uniquely situated to help a lot of people in the way that I've been helped and to try and be there for people the way that they've been there for me. And I'm just really, really grateful that everyone has been a part of it. It's been an otherworldly experience. People sending me screenshots of me changing jobs being a news item in the Hearthstone world. It's been so weird, but humbling and honored. I don't know. I'm out of words to start with H and express my joy. So, just thank you, everybody.
I mean, the Hearthstone community is better because of you and because of the things that you do. And now they're paying you for it, which is, good. They should pay you for it because they probably owe you some back pay for the last several years that, so at least they're starting now. Like the second,
I'm sure that's how Bobby will
time,
see it. Bobby will see
Yeah.
it that way. Yeah. Let's just compensate.
The best time to do this with several years ago, the second best time is now. But I guess the only thing I'm going to add on top of what Edel said is I'm just going to coin concede to everyone in the Discord who has reached out and said, like, what can I do to help in the transition? Like, recognizing that this is going to be a big change and it's going to be a lot. And I don't think either of us knows what it's going to look like yet, but it's going to, it's going to be as great as we can make it. And I think we're both going to give you 100% like we have been. But I do appreciate everyone who's reached out over the last day and just said, like, hey, I don't know what the hell you guys need, but if there is anything, then please. And there were several people, and you know who you are. And I really appreciate it. Like, the thing that I love about this show, like, I was a member of this Discord and this community, like, long before I was on this podcast. I mean, I went through to a much lesser extent when I, hung up the doors on Off Curve and came over here, right? And that was, I mean, that wasn't nearly the same thing, but, at least like a tiny bit of it. But like, I was a member of this community and I was a fan before I was a host. And like, the thing that has kept this here and been my second home before it was my first home has been the community that we have here. And everybody is wonderful. And I am motivated, to keep making this as good as we can do for the community. So I guess thank you to all of you. And, we're going to keep on keeping on. But, that's in 2 weeks. We'll deal with that in 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will
Future
say,
Steve and Future Edel will deal with that.
we do have a plan in terms of,
Yes.
how we want to proceed. So I understand all of you shooting your shot, but we have suspected this was coming for like a while.
Yeah.
And so we have some sense. And hopefully it'll be a fun journey. If the initial prospects don't work out, we're gonna keep brainstorming. But Wicked and I are gonna figure it out.
We will. One way or another, we will. And it's gonna be great, no matter what.
I'm just gonna be real clear about it. I need a podcast to listen to. You're staying.
Yeah.
Like,
We're definitely staying.
We're
actually taking some of your suggestions of of who we should look at. So
that sounds like something I would do. And also, when you stick around, I really hope I get to be your community liaison because that would be just tremendously fun. Because now, Ask Hat is a blue name. That's what that means. That's weird.
As long as it's not Twitter
So
blue,
weird.
then that's good.
No,
Right.
it's-
Yeah, yeah.
Steven, do not wind me up in the coin conceit section. Anyways, so that's gonna do it for our show. I'll talk to you all next week. Again, we don't know the exact date next week. It won't be Thursday. I'll be in the air, but we are gonna try and get 2 more shows all together. So next week, probably Friday or Sunday or what I'd thrown out, but we don't know for sure. We'll announce it. Following week after that, Thursday, May 4th, will be my final episode. Should be at the normal time, so feel free to set your calendars now. It's in 2 weeks from today. Yeah, so keep calm, and thanks, everybody. And if you see us on the ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All right.
That was 2 hours. Holy crap.
Yep.
Yeah.
There were a lot of feels, man.
And
Holy
Blood
crap.
There
Decay.
it goes.
It's,
And blood decay.
emotions and
Yeah,
Blood
that
Death
was like-
Night go well together.
Yeah, that was like one blood decay mirror.
Not
No.
if you're playing
It
More
was
Elf.
like,
also
more
say
like one
die.
piece mirror.
That's a magic mirror, is what that is. That's what Edel does. He'll have the funhouse mirror of just warp it until it breaks. All right, everyone. We're gonna take the stream down now. Yeah, we'll see you next week. We'll let you know when the show is. I'm gonna go on vacation real quick, and then we'll
Right.
see you
I
after.
think you earned it.
Thanks. I think so too.
Yeah.
I will point out I booked this in November, but
Well, you still earned it even back in November.
the timing works out. All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.